war did not begin with gunfire. It began with silence. Not on the battlefield, but inside the rooms where decisions were meant to move faster than bullets. Outside, engines were already running. Crews waited inside armored vehicles. Weapons were loaded. Radios were checked again and again. Everything was ready, except the order. Minutes passed, then more minutes, and then hours. While nothing moved inside those rooms, everything changed outside them. Because battlefields do not wait. They shift. They adapt. They move without permission. By the time the first words were spoken, the enemy had already changed position. When the orders finally arrived, they were clear, precise, and completely outdated. They described a battlefield that no longer existed. That was the moment speed began to matter more than strength. Hesitation didn't stop the war, but it quietly gave it away. The battle itself was not over. It was simply relocating. What followed didn't look like an invasion. There were no dramatic announcements, no clear opening moment. It began with a single authorization, quietly approved. One decision, made late and executed instantly. By the time command understood the scale of what was unfolding, the front line had already begun to fracture. Not collapse, just bend. No order was ever given to retreat. And yet, units started falling back anyway. Not because they were told to, but because reality left them no choice. As the line weakened, command committed what remained. The reserves were sent forward. Everyone understood what that meant. Once they moved, there would be nothing left behind them. As those units advanced, command lost something more dangerous than territory. They lost visibility. Screens lagged, reports arrived out of sequence. Drone feeds froze mid-frame. The war was still happening, but no longer where command thought it was. There was no announcement, no warning. The encirclement didn't arrive suddenly. It simply closed. Routes that had been open an hour earlier were gone. Supply corridors disappeared. Movement options narrowed until there were none left. Inside the perimeter, the war stopped being coordinated. Each unit began fighting its own version of it. Some held ground that no longer mattered. Others moved without knowing who was beside them. Maps were checked, then ignored. Inside the pocket, tactics didn't fail first. Resources did. Ammunition became something to count, not fire. Fuel became something to save, not use. Engines were shut down. Weapons went silent. Staying meant exhaustion. Waiting meant collapse. So movement became the only option left. Not as a strategy, but as survival. Small elements pushed forward. Others followed different routes. Some never made it out.
Raptor 1, break right. Confirming
through.
impact on objective
Some were
Charlie.
Stopped. And with others,
be advised,
contact
drones
was
overhead.
Lost.
Falcon 1, you are
Night
approaching
didn't
danger
bring cover.
close.
It brought confusion.
Affirmative. Ground
Distances
stroke acquired.
became
Banking
harder
hard.
to judge. Friend and
Hawk 1-1,
enemy
you are
sounded the
clear to
same over the
engage. Target
radio.
Victor Pap.
The map stopped matching reality. And reality stopped waiting for the map.
Automated launch sequence complete.
The fighting
Intercept
continued. But the battlefield itself had changed shape.
We copy the intercept.
Command
Over.
tried to regain control. Orders were issued. Overlays were updated. Channels were reopened. But the war was no
Target
longer
confirmed.
waiting for
Hostile.
instructions.
Countdown active.
Initiative
Weapons
moved
hold.
downward.
Cease activation. Affirmative.
Decisions
Friendly
were made
craft.
closer to the
Apologies for
fire,
confusion.
closer to the
Missile
ground,
launch confirmed at
closer to the
045.
risk. Not because it was
Stand by for
better,
targeting data.
but because waiting had become
It's
lethal.
locked.
Speed began saving lives, and then
Warlord
costing
6.
them.
Launch confirmed.
Some
Missile
units
away.
escaped by seconds. Others were caught by the same margin. At that point, even the air stopped waiting. Detection became automated. Response
ROE
became
Amber.
instant.
Acknowledged.
The sky
Good tempo
reacted
established.
faster than any
Move.
human could. At that speed, identification
The fight
became
no longer
fragile.
waits.
Between friend and target, there was barely time to be certain. One contact was misread, corrected just in time. The next one wasn't.
Formation synchronized.
It moved faster.
Moving to intercept.
The system reacted
Confirmed.
faster, and there was no second look, no pause, no recall. After that moment, nothing stopped to reflect on what had happened. Everyone adjusted immediately. Procedures changed. Spacing changed. Movement changed. Hesitation disappeared. Decisions no longer slowed the fight. Humans were still present, still watching, still monitoring, but they were no longer in control. What followed wasn't a collapse. It was a cascade. A small system fault spread across networks faster than anyone could isolate it. Warnings multiplied. Priorities reshuffled. Rollback was attempted. But there was nothing.
Regardless of who stands or falls, the machinery of conflict remains unchanged.
For the people